Hey everyone, FlyingAces here, and we're going to start doing some daily videos on the daily Nonogram puzzles. You can get this app free in the App Store on iPhone or in the Google Play Store for Android, or there's a few other stores as well that have it. We'll go ahead and walk through this, and if you guys like these little tutorial videos, what I'll do is I'll start working on making a few other videos on how to solve these, kind of walking you through what the numbers mean and everything, and get you some more advanced strategies to help solve these. So let's go ahead and get started here. So first off, we have a 15 by 15 puzzle, so one of the larger ones, one of the harder ones. Right off the bat, there are a few squares and even a couple whole rows that we can solve right away. So let's look in the middle there to the left, where the 11 is, kind of in the middle. What that means is there's 11 squares across that we can fill in out of those 15, so there's going to be 4 total that we can't fill out. So just by process of elimination, we know we can do all the middle ones, and the reason for that is if those 11 squares start at the far left, in that first column there, that means they can go all the way over to the second thicker line, the bolder line there, and the square just past it, because that's 11 total. And the same thing is true if we go from right to left. It'll go all the way to the other side of the first thick line, and then the square just past it if you're going from right to left. So what we know is that no matter to which extreme we go, we know that these squares here can all be filled in. And now we just need to figure out what the other ones are. Most likely, looking at this, since everything number-wise is pretty symmetrical on both sides, and then somewhat symmetrical top and bottom, but especially if you go left and right looking at those top group numbers there, most likely the 11 is going to be in the dead center. So we just got to put 2 more on the left, 2 more on the right, but let's just solve this as if we don't know that and do process of elimination that way. Okay, so the next one I see is a couple rows down, the 2, 1, 5, 1, 2. So basically that's all saying you have a group of 2 and then at least one square that's not going to be filled in, and then 1 more, and then no square, and then 5 more, so on and so forth. So what that means is if you add all of that up, you can go 1, 2, flip this over to the X, saying that that's not a filled in square, and then you have the 1, not filled in, 5 across, 1, X, and then 2. So that's how we know that we can fill in that whole row as well. So the same thing if you go 3 more down to the 2, 9, 2, we can do the same exact thing here. Just like so. Now what's nice is if you look at the far left and the far right, we know that we have both the same, and it's a group of 2 squares followed by 1 square. And if we look further down here, there's no way that these 2 can connect and be the same one, if you look at that. So for example, the top one is going to be a group of 2, so either the one above or the one below, adjacent to that first one, going from top to bottom that is going to be filled in, and then it's going to be a blank square. So we know that that's nowhere near close to the one below, so the 3 squares below. So we know that this, there we go, and that, and then this and that can be blocked off. And then for the one above, it's either, like I said, going to be just below or just above. We don't know yet, so we'll leave it as is. Now again, if we look at the top, it says 2, 1, so there's nothing below this 1, and we can fill out the rest as X's here. Likewise, we can also fill out a majority of the top portions on the edge, because we know that with that one that's left by itself and has an adjacent one either below or above, we can actually go 1 more above, like so. I'll just put the X's there so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. And we know that everything above on both of those columns is going to be X'd out, just like so. So that gives us a couple more options here on what we now know, especially with that row of 11. We know that since there's an X on both sides, we can extend that center bar that we filled out by 1 on each side, because we have an X on the far end of each side. So like this and like this. we can't really do too much else here with the rows. We could do something pretty extreme with the 6, 6 there. That's just underneath the 11. We can do something with the 7 now. We know that at least with the 7, the center tile is going to be filled out because of, again, of the X's on both sides. So that's a good sign there. We'll leave that as is for now. With the 6s, I'll go ahead and do something extreme here, just from process of elimination. So again, if we start the first 6 on the far left, we can go just past the first line on the right, and then to that box there, because that's 6 total. So you have 5, bold line, and then your 6 tile there. And then if we put an X there, we can start in the dead center on the next 6 and go 3 over, bold line, and then 3 over. So using that, we know that at least these 4 are going to be filled out and these 4 are going to be filled out, because if you do the same exact thing that I just explained on that row the opposite way, we know that at least those ones are going to be filled out. Now that's going to give us a few answers here. First off, we know, let's see, where do I want to start? Well, let's start with the columns, because we haven't done a lot of any of those really yet. So with the columns here, we'll start with the middle 3. So as you can see, we have the group of 2 in that dead center column there. And if you look at the top, we have 1 by itself, a group of 2, and then 1 by itself, 1 by itself. So with that group of 2, that solves that part of that column. And now we know one of those 4 blank squares above is going to be filled out, and the other 3 will be blank. But now, because of the 1, 1 below the 2, we now know that there are 2 singular filled in boxes below that group of 2. And if you look below, we have that. So for the rest of that column, we can X that out. Okay. So because we've X'd that out, we can look at that bottom row now with the 5, 5. And you can see we have a group of 6 empty boxes and then a group of 6 empty boxes there. So what we can do is we know that at least the middle 4 are going to be filled out on each one, and the 5th box is going to be either on the far right or the far left of each of those groups of 4. We'll leave that alone for now, but that gives us some options there. Now that we have some of the boxes filled out on the bottom row here, great news for us, because now we can work from the bottom up and solve some of these bottom parts of the columns. So let's start in the far left here. So that 3rd column, looking at the bottom, it's a group of 2 at the lowest, and we know the very first box at the bottom, or the last box at the bottom, depending on how you look at it. But the very bottom box is filled out, so we know that that's the first one of the group of 2 that's at the bottom. We know we can't go lower, so it must be the box above. And if we apply that same logic kind of across the board here, we can solve this for the group of 9, and then the group of 1. As you can see, that's already filled out. And then the last one here, the group of 4, and then put an X on top. Just like that. We can do the other 4 on the right side there. Same exact premise. Like so. And we'll put an X up there for the 9 and put an X up there for the other 9. Now, a couple things that's done. If you look at the bottom there, the 13th and 14th rows are now grayed out, meaning they're completely solved. So we can actually apply X's across the board for those ones. Beautiful. Okay, the next thing we can do is in column 5 and column 11, the 2, 4, 1, 1. And again, working from the bottom up, we found the first one, or the last one, down at the bottom, and the next one a few squares up. We can put an X above both of those. The next one here says it's going to be a 4 in those columns, so that open square that's just by itself there in row 10 is not going to be a group of 4 because it's only 1, right? So now that lets us know the group of 4 starts there with those 2 boxes above, so we can go 1, 2, 1, 2, and then put an X and an X, and then the last one will be a group of 2. We have 3 boxes on both, so we know the very middle one is going to be filled in, and we're just going to wait to find out, is it going to be the top or the bottom? Considering the top row is 5, and this is looking to be a very symmetrical puzzle, most likely it's going to be the bottom ones, but again, we'll just wait and see, be a little patient, and do process of elimination. Alright, next thing we can do is if we look at row 6, where it says just the 7 by itself, we can actually now solve that all the way across the board because of the x's on the left and right in the 4th and the 12th columns. Just like so. Which by doing that, we can apply x's across the rest of the way. Beautiful. Exactly what we're looking for. We can also go back to column number 4 and column number 12, where the 3 is at top above the 9s that we solved earlier. And since these are groups of 5, we know that the middle column, or the middle row I should say, will be filled in. And then from there we can actually solve some x's at least for that 3rd row where the 3, 3 is. So we know that middle one is one of the 3's on each one. And we can apply x's in these middle 3 here. Because if we apply the 3 to the right, so the next 2, and fill those in, and the far right box that's filled in, and go left by 3, so fill in the 2 left, there's no way those ones can be filled in there. Okay. Let's go back to let's actually do this real quick. So we're going to go down to row 10 and row 11, and you'll see that we have 2 singular boxes from the 9s in columns 4 and 12 that we solved earlier. We can put a couple x's on both sides of those, so we know that's solved, and kind of just more so get that out of the way. And then a couple other x's we can fill in is in column 6 and column 10. We solved the bottom 4 and now have the middle 4 found, so we can put x's below and above those as well. The same is true for columns 7 and 9, where we have the 1, 2, 1, 1. We have the 2 and the 1 and the 1 going from the middle there to the bottom. So we found the bottom ones, and then that 2, we're just looking for the top ones. So we know that starting from here, above the groups of 2, everything else below is going to be an x. That actually helps us solve the very bottom row and gives us the 5s we need there. That also helps us technically solve columns 2 and columns 14, where it says 5, 1, because now that we know that that is going to be the bottom 1, these boxes here will be the group of 5, and that will also solve those columns as well. This also helped solve row 10, so we can put in x's there as well. Because of that, from solving columns 2 and 14, we can now finally solve the main middle row of 11 that we started with, and just as I presumed, it is a symmetrical puzzle. We can solve those directly in the middle. Perfect. Puzzle's coming together great. We can solve the rest of the middle row there with the 6 and the 6, so we'll fill those in now. That's solved both row number 7 and then columns 1 and 15. Alright, let's move on to row number 5 with the 2, 2. Because we have the 1 box there in column number 5 and then the 1 box there in column 11, and then the x's on one side, the second one that should be filled in that's adjacent to those boxes is only available on one side, so we'll fill those in as such. That also helps us solve column 4 and column 12. We found the group of 9 earlier, that's great. And now we have the group of 3 starting above that x. We just need to fill in the square in between, and we are good to go. This also helps us solve row number 4 in the same way. And then now we can fill in row number 4 with x's as well. This also helps us solve column number 3 and column number 13, as we know where the top group of 3 start going from the bottom up. And we can fill in x's as well. We could have also filled in those x's at the very top because we know that there is one group of 5, and having one open box by itself, you obviously can't fit 5 boxes in there. Let's see, we can solve row number 3 in the same way that we just did with those columns, like so, and then row number 2 as well. Fill in those x's. And the way we can do this last group of 5 here is column number 5 can't be filled out anymore because it's grayed out, and the same thing with column number 11 as it is grayed out. That leaves us just 5 boxes open, and that gives us the solve puzzle. Oh, and a cute little robot. There you go. And that is the daily nonogram puzzle for February 27th. Let me know in the comments if this helped. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to have more tutorials like this, be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time.